The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli is a comprehensive guide that aims to help readers identify and overcome common cognitive biases, logical fallacies, and irrational thinking patterns. The book is divided into 93 short chapters, each focusing on a specific cognitive error or logical fallacy. Dobelli provides numerous examples and anecdotes from history, psychology, and everyday life to illustrate these errors and offer practical advice on how to avoid them. One of the first cognitive biases discussed in the book is the availability heuristic, which is our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that come to mind easily. Dobelli gives the example of a person who, after hearing about a plane crash, becomes afraid of flying. However, they fail to consider the much higher probability of dying in a car accident. Another example is the overestimation of the risk of shark attacks after watching Jaws, despite the fact that the risk of dying from a bee sting or a lightning strike is much higher. Another common cognitive bias is confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore contradictory evidence. Dobelli provides an example of a person who believes that vaccines are harmful. When they encounter evidence that vaccines are safe and effective, they may dismiss it as part of a conspiracy or attribute it to the pharmaceutical industry's influence. This bias can lead to the reinforcement of false beliefs and the rejection of scientific consensus. Another type of cognitive bias discussed in the book is the sunk cost fallacy, which is the tendency to continue investing time, effort, or money into a project or decision simply because we have already invested in it. Dobelli gives the example of a person who buys a concert ticket for $100 and then spends another $100 on transportation and accommodation. Even if they don't enjoy the concert, they may feel compelled to attend because of the sunk costs. This fallacy can lead to poor decision-making and the waste of resources. The book also addresses the issue of overconfidence, which is the tendency to overestimate our own abilities and the likelihood of success. Dobelli provides numerous examples of this bias, including the case of a group of amateur investors who were overconfident in their ability to beat the stock market and lost significant amounts of money as a result. The book emphasizes the importance of humility and self-awareness in mitigating this bias. One of the most interesting chapters in the book is titled "The Planning Fallacy." This cognitive bias refers to our tendency to underestimate the time required to complete tasks or projects. Dobelli provides numerous examples of this bias, including the case of the Sydney Opera House, which took 14 years to complete, despite initial estimates of just 4 years. The book suggests that this bias is due to a combination of optimism bias, the tendency to be overly optimistic about the future, and the availability heuristic, our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events that come to mind easily. The book also discusses the concept of loss aversion, which is the tendency for people to feel the pain of losing something twice as strongly as they feel the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. Dobelli provides an example of a person who is offered a choice between a guaranteed $500 loss and a 50-50 chance of losing $1,000 or keeping $500. The person is likely to choose the guaranteed loss, even though the expected value, the average outcome, is the same in both cases. This bias can lead to irrational decision-making, such as holding on to losing investments or avoiding potentially beneficial risks. Another important concept discussed in the book is the difference between narrow and broad thinking. Narrow thinking involves focusing on a single aspect of a problem or situation, while broad thinking involves considering multiple perspectives and potential solutions. Dobelli provides an example of a person who is struggling with their career and decides to quit their job without considering alternative options. This narrow thinking limits their ability to find a better solution to their problem. The book emphasizes the importance of broad thinking in problem-solving and decision-making. The book also addresses the issue of hindsight bias, which is the tendency to believe, after an event has occurred, that the outcome was inevitable or easily predictable. Dobelli provides an example of a person who wins the lottery and then believes that they had a special connection to the winning numbers. In reality, the odds of winning the lottery are extremely low, and the outcome was not predictable. Hindsight bias can lead to overconfidence in our ability to predict future events and make accurate decisions. One of the most fascinating chapters in the book is titled "The Barnum Effect," which refers to our tendency to accept descriptions of our personality or character that seem tailor-made for us, even if they are vague and inaccurate. Dobelli provides an example of a person who attends a psychic reading and feels a sense of validation because the psychic seems to know so much about them. In reality, the psychic is likely using vague language and making generalizations that apply to a wide range of people. The book suggests that this effect is due to our desire to see ourselves in a positive light and our tendency to accept information that confirms our existing beliefs about ourselves. The book also discusses the concept of anchoring bias, which is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information encountered when making decisions. Dobelli provides an example of a car salesperson who quotes a high asking price for a vehicle and then offers a substantial discount. The buyer may focus on the initial asking price and feel like they are getting a good deal, even if the actual value of the vehicle is much lower. This bias can lead to irrational decision-making and the acceptance of inflated prices. Another important concept discussed in the book is the sunk cost fallacy, which is the tendency to continue investing time, effort, or money into a project or decision simply because we have already invested in it. Dobelli provides an example of a person who buys a concert ticket for $100 and then spends another $100 on transportation and accommodation. Even if they don't enjoy the concert, they may feel compelled to attend because of the sunk costs. This fallacy can lead to poor decision-making and the waste of resources. The book also addresses the issue of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the tendency for people to overestimate their abilities or knowledge in areas where they are actually incompetent. Dobelli provides an example of a person who is terrible at singing, but believes they have a great voice. This effect is named after two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, who discovered that incompetent individuals tend to lack the metacognitive ability to recognize their own incompetence. This bias can lead to overconfidence and poor decision-making in areas where one is not skilled or knowledgeable. In conclusion, The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli is an invaluable guide for anyone seeking to improve their critical thinking skills and avoid common cognitive biases, logical fallacies, and irrational thinking patterns. The book's comprehensive coverage of these topics, combined with its engaging writing style and numerous real-world examples, makes it accessible and applicable to a wide range of readers. By learning to recognize and overcome these cognitive errors, readers can make better decisions, improve their problem-solving abilities, and lead more fulfilling lives.